I'll call the meeting to order, and let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Here it is. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, regarding announcements, I just want to make a first announcement. We understand that we may have some first-time attendees again on the Zoom this evening and would like to review the standard school board meeting process. At the start of the meeting, members from the public may comment on agenda items only. The school board will move through the regular work session meeting. Then at the end, when prompted, there is time for public comment. This meeting is being videotaped to be broadcast on community cable channels and online. Individuals attending this meeting virtually and intending to speak to the board should be aware that they are being videotaped. In order to meet the requirements of Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the board during the meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the board raise their hand electronically, and when prompted, state their name and complete address. Please spell your last name. Members of the audience are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes to allow time for all those who wish to speak to the board, and the board president may ask an individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker. So thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Do we have our student reps on the line here? Jules,
Yes,
I see you're there, and Ishka. Do you have any announcements for us this evening?
No announcements this evening.
No announcements this evening? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Public to be heard on agenda items only. This would be an opportunity to use that raise your hand feature on Zoom. Do we have any?
At this time,
Rich,
there
are
are
there
no
any?
hands raised.
Okay, thank you. We have an action item tonight. We have 20 resolutions. So do we have a motion to approve the action items A through T?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions, discussion, comments, anything? Okay, that passes. And I believe that next week, Mr. McDaniel is going to do the presentation, correct? For those. Is that correct, Mr. McDaniel?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, moving on to
Mrs.
board and committee
Zazowski?
reports. Yes.
Colleen,
Yes.
you didn't actually vote.
Yes.
You did the motion in the second, but there was
Oh,
no
we
vote
didn't
taken.
vote. I'm so sorry. Sorry about that. So let's just go back for a minute. All in favor? It's a work session. We don't vote at work sessions. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear anybody. Okay. Any opposed? Okay, there we go. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, board and committee reports, curriculum and technology. Linda?
All right, let me unmute here. The Curriculum and Technology Committee met Monday, May 11th on Zoom. Let's see, there was, Dr. Murray shared that the summer pre-K program has been canceled for the 2020 year due to COVID. She also shared the updated curriculum cycle, which includes projections of curriculum adoptions throughout 2029. And then we talked about how we were going to prepare for the fall. She showed how the district is engaging in research and discussions to prepare for potential directives regarding school closures in the fall and what we would do in different scenarios. She also had a discussion regarding asynchronous and synchronous instruction, and she shared several models of online learning. Mr. Catalano with technology shared updates regarding the distribution of Chromebooks as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. He also shared information regarding smart board installation and updating teachers' laptops. And that was about it. The meeting adjourned at 9:10 p.m. And that's all. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you for that. And moving on to policy, policy met just prior to curriculum and technology on May 11th. The administration did share that we are still working to get feedback from the attendance officers regarding the medical excuse and if that will be on an electronic format going forward. So that's still in process. The policy 204 regarding attendance was discussed and revised slightly. The committee recommended that the policy be sent to the solicitor and barring any significant adjustments brought forward for a first reading at the upcoming board meeting, which is tonight. So it is on for a first read tonight. 2 additional motions will be brought forward for approval regarding 2 other policies. You see them on the work session agenda. It was in referencing the correct policy numbers. The legal references there are being adjusted. Mr. Rizzo, did you want to comment further on that piece?
Sure, policy 20, in that piece or in the, so we have our motions and all of our motions have legal references to them. So we have, the policies that are up for discussion tonight are all policies that reference a retired policy. So all we're doing is changing the reference by pulling those retired policy numbers out and adding in the policy numbers that replace them, 103 and 104, or just 103. And then as far as the policies up for first
Correct.
read 204 attendance, a couple of very small changes that were recommended by the solicitor. We added one reason that needs to be in there for PA school code, which is students participating in agricultural fairs in conformity with section 1329B of the Public School Code of 1949. That one needs to be in there, and it is now in there. And then we added the term consecutive, where it says family or non-school sponsored trips that exceed 10 consecutive school days. That was the intent. That word was just omitted, so we added that one. And then lastly, where it says all absences from school or religious holidays or for religious instruction subject to the requirements of this section was added, just again to add some clarity, all recommended by the solicitor. That's it.
Thank you. The committee went on to review the equity, diversity, and inclusion policy, made some minor edits. Committee considered comments shared by the solicitor, and barring any significant adjustments, that policy also has now been brought forth for a first reading tonight. All policies have now been migrated to board docs also, and the administration showed the committee how to find the newly placed policies on the board docs. Then moving on to policy 816, the use of audio and video monitoring equipment. That policy was discussed and revised. Committee recommended that that goes to the solicitor and again would be brought back this evening, but I believe there were some significant changes with that, with 816 that we will discuss in the next policy meeting. Correct, Mr. Rizzo?
That is correct.
That is correct.
We will bring that up
Okay.
at the June meeting.
We also
yes.
discussed, yes, at the June meeting. We also discussed as a committee the plan to review approximately 130 policies that are 20+ years old and approve those as a batch. Administration will review and prepare a list of policies to be considered throughout the summer. Policies will be recommended for review based on a need to be updated rather than just the age of the policy. So you'll see there are a number of policies on for a first read tonight and then for approval next week. We will meet again in June and continue this process with 816 and the plan for the summer, as I said, for that batch of policies that could potentially, many of them need to be looked at. Any questions on policy? Okay, so our next committee report will be extracurricular and Mr. Schaefer.
Good evening. Thank you. So about 2 weeks ago, on May the 5th, the extracurricular committee met via Zoom. There were 13 in attendance. All members from the board were there, along with administration and representatives of faculty. A few points of update. So a project has been ongoing, led by Mr. McDaniel, Dr. Nugent, Mr. Rizzo, and Mr. Miscavige, all working on updating the athletic extracurricular handbook. So it was, last time it was updated was roughly 2005-ish. and that will be shared with the board when complete. On May the 5th, via Zoom, which was the same day, just earlier, we had our spring senior signing event from our fantastic class of 2020. And just to report on some of the highlights, we had 6 football players that announced with their families that they're playing at the next level, 2 from the wrestling, 4 from baseball, 1 from girls basketball, 1 from field hockey, and 1 from girls swimming. So a few board members also participated in that, and I thought that the event was well planned and went extremely well. The spring athletics update was provided by Mr. McDaniel, and obviously we didn't have any of these sports, but the numbers were presented and will be included in the minutes, which will be circulated. Quick totals. Last year there were 465 that participated in spring sports. This year there were 449. It's down 16. That's roughly about the same amount. But unfortunately, obviously, these activities didn't happen. So there was a sort of a grim update that because of not having these spring sports with the officials, transportation, field work, et cetera, the district was able to save about $59,000. We unanimously agreed this was perhaps the worst savings, but it is something that I asked to have reviewed and presented, and so therefore it's been noted. There were presentations, 3 of them made virtually, obviously 7th grade newspaper club, 7th grade world language club, and the 11th grade House Advisory Committee. Chad Strickler presented for the art department, which at the time a virtual art show was tentatively being planned for May 18th through May 31st to represent our students' artwork. Roughly 1,000 pieces were being planned to be available for review online. The music department also had an opportunity to present just sort of an update that the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade bands were planning a virtual concert, possibly by the end of May. They also created a recruitment video to sort of make sure that word is getting out about the opportunities for students for next year. Live lessons continue to be handled through Microsoft Teams for grades 4 with high school band buddies. And the band and string directors were continuing to keep music students connected. So there was the last presentation was on RCTV. They're still producing home shows, I should say shows from home, 3 segments per episode. And they're getting a continual increased number of views on YouTube and Facebook. There was no public comment and the meeting adjourned at 8:31. Anybody have any questions?
I just had a comment. The virtual art show came out today and it was really great. You should, if you get a chance to look at it.
I would agree with that. It's very well done, and it's very nice. Very nice.
Amazing artwork.
It is. Okay. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Schaefer? Okay, Tom, Finance?
Finance Committee, we met May 12th. As everyone else said, it was a virtual meeting. First thing we went through the executive reports. Our cash balances are where we anticipated at this point. Our revenues up to date are on target, but we're starting to see drop-offs, and I'll cover that in a little bit. So far, the good thing is the state revenues are also leveling off as expected, so we haven't seen any decline there as of yet. Expenditures are starting to showing impact from the shutdown, especially in the service lines. I just want to jump ahead. 1 second. don't see, I thought I had those numbers in here, but anyway, we'll come back to that as far as the drop-offs, as far as expenses are concerned. The assessments, our goal for the year was 4.099 billion. We have about 9 million to go by the end of the month for assessments. So that's one of the things that we'll probably start seeing a drop-off. We did pick up about $5 million since the last meeting, but we're still down. And we're not sure we're going to hit the target. We're anticipating that we'll see a missed target by at least $10 million, which equates to about $275,000 in tax revenue. Our real estate transfer taxes, we're on target. We're within the budget, but again, that's a few months. Even though we're reporting as of April, those transfer taxes are related to sales that happened before coronavirus pandemic started, and some that were concluding right when we were getting into the mix of it. So that's one of the numbers that we're anticipating that will go down, as well as the earned income tax. We're pacing slightly ahead by the end of April, but again, that goes back to previous months. We're going to be playing catch up with the economy as we start looking at the next several months. We do know that May is historically bigger due to April 15 tax filing, but that obviously we all know that those tax filings have been pushed out, so we will see an impact there as well. And the unemployment compensation at the time when we had the meeting was up to 14.7% nationally. Our self-funded insurance claims as of April have come down. They're a little bit more at the normal levels of what we have budgeted. So we're still, as year to date, we're still tracking above budget, but we're hoping that we'll continue to track down and close out the year on budget or slightly above budget. The food services, we have been impacted pretty hard there with the shutdown. Setback due to maintaining the salary and the benefits of staff and sales revenues not being there to cover those costs. So the only revenue coming in is reimbursements for free lunches, which is not enough to cover expenditures. We're looking at somewhere about a $400,000 to $500,000 loss for the year there. The high school expansion project, no movement there. We have somewhere a little over 1.5 million left to pay out, but that's all related to the punch list items. We did get into, there is a question, you know, there's this belief that since we're not in school, that the district is saving a lot of money. We did go through a slide. I thought it was in the meeting minutes, but it wasn't. But let me just check one thing because I might have it. Hang on one sec. So we're overall, the net is we're looking at losing in the 1920 school year, we're looking at losing or being at a loss of somewhere around $670,000. Some of the things that potential expense savings, I'll just review real quickly, is busing. We're looking at saving about $30,000 there. Even though we're not in school and we're not running the buses in the contract, there is a 180-day clause, so we have to execute on that 180-day and pay that out. I'm sure a lot of school districts, when they go to renew contracts like that in the future, it'll be some type of pandemic language written in, but who knew? Our contracted cleaning services, we're seeing about $250,000 savings there. The big one was substitute teachers. We're seeing about $600,000 savings there. And utilities, trash, electric, water, gas, etc. We're seeing about a $100,000 savings there. On the flip side, revenue losses, our earned income tax, we're predicting about losing about $400,000. Our earned interest, which is related to the interest rates, we're looking at losing about $400,000. Our earned income taxes, we're predicting based on the unemployment, we're going to lose about $500,000. Our real estate transfer taxes are going to drop, and that's based on trends. We're going to lose about $300,000. And our food, as I mentioned, our food service operating, which was going to be somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000. We're just saying $450,000. That has a net loss to the district for the 2019-20 school year of about $670,000. So as the board can see, even though that we're closed, there isn't a lot of savings. In fact, we're going to have a loss in, so we're going to be basically ending the year at a deficit. We did get into the budget. There wasn't any really changes from the last time, but we did have a lot of conversation around that. There was a Western Center budget was passed, and we're seeing about an $85,000 reduction from the Western Center budget. So at that point, our tax rate change went from 3.28% to 3.2%. Through a lot of conversations, we did decide to revisit the new hire list, and the committee, through conversations, wanted to make a recommendation to the full board that we, at this point, not move forward with new hires. That was if the board remembers, that was the first set of positions that were new to the district. Originally, we were at somewhere around $900,000. We cut about $100,000 down to that. We brought us down to like 700. I don't remember exact numbers. Brought us down to 752,000 roughly. And so if we freeze on all new hires, we will save $752,871. Again, that's only new positions to the district. And if we did that, it would bring our budget down to roughly 2.5% tax increase. The other recommendation to the board is that, as Ms. Melton brought up in the past, and the Finance Committee felt that we should probably do this, although as Mr. Jackson pointed out, you know, we were talking about making cuts, but then we're going to provide rebates. But the Finance Committee wanted to make a recommendation to the board that we do move forward with that rebate program. That criteria is already established by the state. People would have to apply and be accepted in the state rebate program. And our recommendation to the board is based on that rebate and what they get. We would give them a 30% rebate of that number off of their taxes. So for example, somebody could apply for that rebate and get maybe $600 in the state rebate, and we would give them, you know, 30% of that, which would be $180. If I did my math quick, right. So there are two recommendations from the Finance Committee. We did have, and I'll circle back to a conversation also that we have to have, but we also did discuss about town hall meeting, and we had looking at some possible dates, and with no conflicts with other things going on in the district. And right now, we're thinking that the best date, although we're kind of running out of time, we may have to push this a little bit, but the best day for the town hall meeting, virtual town hall meeting, would be Wednesday, May 27th. Other business, we did talk about, we are in the process of working on a renewal of Aramark's food contract. That food contract guarantees a break even, covering any type of downside risk moving forward. We do have to move forward on that. And if the board has any questions, Mr. Fink could most certainly answer that. But the idea is we have to move forward with that contract and get it to PDE for their approval. So that's a process that has to happen as well. And we also had some conversations around possibly making changes to the tax bill process. One of the things that we're possibly talking about is adding an additional installment. So instead of having 3 installment payments, going to 4 installments. And we're also having discussion around the penalty phase of pushing that out 1 month if we increase installments. And I did talk about the rebate program. the estimate cost to the district would be somewhere between $125,000 and $175,000. Like I said, we would be following the state guidelines, and the percentage from the school district standpoint of the finance committee recommendation is 30%, 30% of what they would receive back from the state. And that was about it. But one of the things from finance committee standpoint that we have to come to agreement, because we're kind of like not sure where we should go from here, is what is the targeted goal of the board from a budget standpoint and a basically budget deficit and the tax implications to the community. If we agree to not move forward with new hires and we put the rebate program back in, just doing some quick math, but we would be right at index about 2.6%. And Jim, if you, Mr. Fink, if you want, I don't know if I got the numbers completely right, but I think that's where we'd end up, somewhere around there.
Yeah, that you're about right there. Yep.
Okay, so because the board, we need to get directive from the board as far as what are we trying to achieve at this point? Because based on that, we'll determine what our next recommendations would be to the board as far as recommendations then would have to go to administration. So we have to have that conversation. At this point, we have had many months, not many months, but the last few months, we've gotten a lot of information from administration. What do things look like? What do different programs look like? What if changes to the budget? What reductions would look like? But we're kind of like at the point now, we have to determine what is our target. And so that we know where to go from there. Any questions? And then I need a recommendation back from the board as far as what our target is. No questions? So then what's our target?
I have a question, Tom. Tom, I have a question.
Okay, Colleen,
The Aramark. What's,
I hear you, yeah.
thank you. What's the impact if we are not back in school? Can you hear me? I think
Yeah, I can
Tom
hear
got
you.
frozen. Okay, what's the impact
I
if
can
we're
hear you.
not back in school with Aramark?
It's a break-even contract. So Jim, if Mr. Fink, if you want to explain what that break-even means, other than it means
Well, the
if we don't, if we're not back in school,
break
it's not
even
an
means
impact.
just that. If we are not back in school, then essentially likely what we would continue to do is the similar programs that we're currently doing this spring at a couple of facilities for our free and reduced it's not really, it's for a community for which we do get reimbursements for. We would definitely have to look closer at our staffing requirements there. And I don't know if we don't, there's way too many questions that would need to be answered to even decide that, simply because we don't know, would be in the same situation now, and then that came from the state as far as employee costs and those types of things, our employee costs. Currently, as far as the Aramark side of it goes, we're only paying for our food service director, which is currently what we, would be paying if we did not have Aramark. So really, there's no additional cost as far as that goes. That makes any sense to you?
Sort of. All right,
Clear as
so
mud, right,
let's
Colleen?
move on. I
Because-
guess Tom's other question then.
The answer, the 100,000 answer to your question, Colleen, is because of where we are with Aramark and the agreements as far as a break even. If we renew and we don't go back to school in August, the impacts are internal to Springford. And that will all be based on what we decide where we're going with tax goals. And that's why I said this is a two-part question. The first part is where's the board want, what's the board's goal of what we're trying to achieve? And then based on that, then we would know where we need to direct administration. Okay, so the board
Tom,
has no goals.
Thank you, Tom, and the Finance Committee. So just to review, where would we be at right now?
If the board agrees to no new hires, and new hires are classified as new positions in the district, the board agrees to the rebate program, we would be roughly at 2.6%.
Okay.
Which is index, correct?
Yeah.
Which is index.
Yes. I'd support that. Just if we wanted to go around the table or whatever, I'd support right where we're at. I think I think the Finance Committee administration, you guys have done a great job. We started above 4, and to be down at 2.6, I think is a good balance for this year.
Yeah. I'm also good with index, which I've said before.
I think it's, as part of Finance Committee, we did agree on this, so obviously I'm on board with it.
On board with the 2.6.
Index.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm comfortable with index.
go ahead, Christine.
I was just saying, I'm comfortable with index, but I am concerned with a few of those positions that I think we really need to evaluate. There were, as I recall, there was a psychologist and there were a counselor and some additional support that's absolutely needed. And I think we have to evaluate. I understand that we can continue to operate with some of our classes for another year without adding additional staff to support them. But I am a little bit concerned in terms of some of the specialty areas and making sure that we are able to be compliant and meet the needs of our students. And certainly COVID has been a very traumatic time for everybody, and especially for our students. And I want to make sure that we have the right supports in place when they do return. So I really would like to take a look at a few of those positions and consider keeping those as new hires.
Okay,
So
Christina, that's the last time I let you go first before me, because you pretty much said what I was thinking. And I do appreciate all the hard work that has gone into this. I don't want to take a lot of time saying that, because there's a learning curve for many of us, and there's been a lot of information gathering that we've asked, and I appreciate that. But I am in agreement with what Christina has said about not all positions are equal, and there are some positions that that can be maybe considered holding off on, but there are other ones that I do worry about just blanketly saying none of the new hires. I would like to be able to take a closer look at that and get some input maybe from our administrators on the need. Thank you.
Okay, so where are you at? So you don't support index.
I like index. I do, I think that's a great accomplishment, but I don't know.
Well, at some point we have to establish a target.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to say that we're going to go back and if you want to go back and reevaluate the positions, that's fine, but then there's no target.
Still a target. The target, to me, the target is index, but I do feel that there were at least 2 positions on that list that I think that we really need to take a hard look at before we eliminate or before we decide not to move forward with them.
Right. And I agree with that. I think the 2.6 index is where we want to, where I would like to see us go. And maybe if it, with input from administration, there's some other places that we can, some ways we can keep some of those positions, and other suggestions they would have as to how they would like to be able to, I don't know, work with that, with keeping some of the positions. I don't know.
Is there any
I'm absolutely 100%.
Change if we see that our revenue is better than expected, that we can then reassess some of these that we consider crucial, rather than just singling out a few positions right now as more crucial than others.
I'm absolutely 100% not okay with index. And I think that we are being very short-sighted because we haven't even felt the full effect of this global pandemic. So the idea that we're going to have a windfall or that it's not going to be as bad, I think we're just fooling ourselves. So, you know, I'm one of 9, but I'm 100% opposed. I'm not fixated at 0, but I am absolutely positively nowhere near index.
So Wendy, to answer to your question is, yes, we could always go back and add positions if things are looking better than anticipated.
Thanks.
I believe that's what you're asking.
Yes.
And this is Diane. I agree with Maggie and Christina. If at all possible, you know, we can revisit this after we get a better idea of the total effects of COVID as we can. Don't know even how long it's going to last, but I agree with Christine, given the impact on our children in the school district, there may be 1 or 2 that we may need to hang on to.
Mr. Fink, do you have an update on the,
we keep going round and round. I really don't know. I mean, what positions is your recommendation? First off, the finance committee is recommending to the board. I'm going to do this step by step. The finance committee is recommending to the board that we do not move forward any new hires. Where does the board specifically just to that? Where is the board at with that?
Agreed.
Agreed what?
Agreed. No new hires.
Okay. Wendy.
No new hires.
Clinton.
My position has always been the same, no new hires, but I gotta ask the question, Mr. DeBello, if you're asking board members and they're saying no new hires, but in the other breath, we want to go back and look at, never mind, no new hires.
Dave.
No new hires, yeah.
Diane.
Given what I just said, I at this point, I'll go given no hires.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, given what I just said in explanation, but at this point, I will go with no new hires.
Christina?
I believe there are 2 positions on that list that we really need to reevaluate. So I can't say that.
Okay, Maggie?
Yeah, I'm with Christina. I'd like to see some administrative input onto a couple of those positions that I think that we need in order to maintain, to be legal, to be current legally.
Mr. DeBello.
Yeah.
If there are board members who disagree with this, do not feel like you're being pressured. If it's your position that you think 3 positions should be kept or 5 positions, you have that right to voice that. Please don't feel like you're being pressured to agree with no new hires. That's it.
Did you weigh in?
Dave, Dr. Gooden, is there any position of the positions, are any of them legally required?
The only one that I would be concerned about is the psychologist position. Each year, if you recall, the board, we come to the board sometime early, really early spring and ask for additional hours for contracted psychological services. And we've done that for the last few years. And that is the reason that that particular position was put in as a new hire. Now we've done that every year. And so what we did, and that's why that made that on that list. So each year we've always needed additional hours. And so that's how that position made it onto the new hire list as a priority item. Obviously, contracting is still an option for us.
So how much does so that's for compliance, say, is the word. And so how much do we end up spending contracting somebody in? Is it going to end up costing us the same amount it would be as to hire one of our own? Maybe that's a question for Mrs. Lees.
Actually, I think that would be Mr. Rizzo. I can't recall right off the top of my head what we're spending on contracted services right now. Mr. Rizzo, you got that?
Sure. We're spending in the vicinity of $70,000 a year for contracted services. We're getting some school psychologist services for 3 days a week. And then we're handling overflow when it comes to early intervention screenings coming up, that come up every January. So the short answer is between 60 and 70. And I believe with all things included, a new position would be somewhere in the 90 to 100 range if you throw everything in there.
And Dr. Goodman, another area you had expressed concern about was the English language, the ELD. Is that also a concern from a compliance perspective?
Christina, you're cutting out. You're cutting out really bad. I couldn't answer the question.
I apologize. You had mentioned previously the English language teacher for. Is that still a concern?
Yes, for our non-English speaking students. It is. It is. We're servicing them now, but we could do a better job.
Thank you. Those were the two positions I think that I had in mind that I actually just went back to my notes that I was most concerned about from a retention or from a hire perspective. Not retention, but from a new hire.
Hey, Mr. Fink, based on what we're talking about with the psychologist position, does that turn out to be basically a wash in the budget if we kept that position in?
Well, it sounded to me from what was stated, it's pretty close to a wash. I mean, you're talking about at least what we budgeted in there, about 82.7 for that spot. And I think Mr. Rizzo was alluding to that it's for typically like 3 days a week or something like that. So this would obviously give you 5 days worth of service for a couple more dollars.
And is the contracted services already in the budget?
I don't believe it is, no.
So it's not a wash per se because it wasn't in the budget and now we're adding it to the budget, right?
Right.
But it could have been it would have been an unbudgeted expense potentially.
Right.
And those contracted services, if we're not in school next year, do we pay those?
Well, you still need
the testing, yes.
Yeah.
All that still has to be done.
5 days worth. I'm just asking.
All the services.
5 days worth. That's what I'm asking. It's more of a rhetorical question.
The answer to your question is it'd be at least 3 days worth. I don't know why we have such a hard time answering some of these questions. It's pretty straightforward.
I would like to, Mr. DeBello, I would like to clarify something as well. We're talking about a position here that is far more expensive than some of the other positions. So when we do the budget, we average it all out, assuming that it's going to come, a new position is going to come in at a certain level. So when you're talking about a position at this level, while we have an $82,000, $83,000 budget number in there, which is the same number we budget for all new positions because we don't know exactly where they're going to fall. But if you're just going to single out this one, it's probably going to fall closer to the 105, 115, 120 range when all is said and done.
Big difference.
Yep.
And unfortunately, given the circumstances, we don't know what the impact will be in the fall for these children needing more psychological adjustment help because of this shutdown and everything else. We don't know that. So it could be we wouldn't only need 2 days, or maybe we need 5 days. How do you answer that at this point?
Well, I do know that based on our current closure, that we are backlogged a little over 200 evaluations. So regardless of what happens, we're going to be coming to you for more hours to be able to get those done, because there are timelines we have to meet. And right now, whether you add a position or not, we still have a pretty big load to kind of work through. So it's going to be there. That's a reality of us not being there. Are things we do everything we can from home that we can do, but there's just face-to-face things that need to be done that our school psychologists have not been able to do yet.
Okay, so Mr. DeBella, where are you now?
I have no idea.
Well, I was just thinking to help possibly maybe go around the table. Some of this conversation has sort of swayed my thinking that perhaps it's actually, it sounds like sort of a financial wash anyway. So I wonder if we'd have no new hires except for this particular one that has been gaining all this attention and discussion. I bet we might have enough votes here for clarity. Just an idea, or we can continue to talk.
Well, continuing around what we're doing here around this hamster wheel, I believe Jim just said that all in, we're upwards over 100, and we were at 60,000 contracted. So.
Well, it was 70,000 contracted, but that's
60 to 70. He was at 60 to 70.
But that's a 3-day contract.
It is.
So we're talking about the difference between a 3-day and a 5-day, and if we're already 200 evaluations behind,
It's probably a wash. I mean, I'm just
probably by the time all is said and done, going to come fairly close.
Yeah. In the grand scheme of the big budget, it's definitely a wash from my perspective. I'm the only one chiming in here, though. So, Tom, I'm trying to help out.
If we put that position back in, it goes to 2.8% or 2.7%.
I'm okay with 2.7% in that position. There's one vote.
I agree. That's 2 votes.
I agree. That's 3.
Wendy?
I mean, it's a 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Yeah, it's not that big a deal.
That's 4. Maggie?
Yeah, I agree. I think that the benefit that we'll also see with such an important position at this point is that when we have our own contracted employee, we have someone who's very invested in our students also, and especially at this time with what's going on. The English language one is one I'd like to see, but I'd be more likely to deal with contracted services if we needed to be for compliancy, for IDEA or, whatever. So yeah, so that was my long way of saying yes.
Christina? That's 5.
Tom?
What? No, I think that we're setting ourselves up for a big problem, but I'm trying to go a direction of where the majority of the board is at. I've said all along what my feelings were. I think that we are going down a path that is going to have significant impacts on this district in the next 2 to 3 years, but the majority of the board is where they are. So we're running out of time, and I'm trying to move us. I need to know where we're at from a finance committee standpoint.
Well, don't worry about time and make your case. Make your case. Do a quick 5-minute make your case.
I can't make my case in 5 minutes. I've been making my case for the last several months. So the board is where they're at, and that's fine. That's where you're at.
Hold on, you're a member of this board, Tom. You can't be like the board's where it's at and I'm over here. I mean, the case I would say that you've been making is we need a number. I haven't heard anything else besides we need a number.
I've talked about many times about what the problems with pushing stuff down the road. I've talked about the impacts that that's going to have on future budgets. I went through all of that. I've been very vocal about my positions. I'm talking as the finance chair, where all I'm saying is that we need to get to a point, and we're at that point as far as where is the board at when it and it's the board is zeroing in on 2.6, 2.7%. That if that's where the majority of the board is at, then that's I have to support the majority of the board.
Well, it's again balancing. We're not kicking the can with going all the way to a zero, right? At least this is sort of if I had to chime in here. And I think that a lot of conversation's been had and a lot of work has been done. And again, we have to balance. And you know, we certainly have to address the realities of being in this state, and also not sort of harm our school system immediately and in the medium and long term. And so that's why I feel like right now 2.6, 2.7 is a good spot. And I'm actually surprised that as the chair of the finance committee, you're not happy with that, because you know, I totally get it. Maybe zipping it down to zero might be a little bit too much of a knee jerk. So, you know, I think we're in a good spot.
Well,
that's fine.
Tom, it's a good point. It's something that we've talked about in the past, and it's something that we looked at in presentations that Mr. Fink had shared with us. Some of the decisions, and you know, as we move things from this year to next year and how that will impact next year's budget. So certainly, you know, there will be needs next year as well, and gaps that we're not able to fill this year. And I wonder, you know, the last I recall is that from the things that we had opted to kind of not implement or kick down the road a bit, was going to put us in a position of about a 5% tax increase next year. Is that about right, Mr. Fink?
Hang on, had to find the unmute button there. I will tell you that, let me see where I'm at here.
I mean, I remember it was over.
Yeah, it's going to be right around that spot.
Yeah, so I mean, we're already starting next year beyond index and beyond any waivers that we receive. So we have to be aware of that, because that's going to require additional cuts next year. So decisions that we make will definitely have an impact on us next year. It's not, you know, I think, Mr. DeBello, that's one of the concerns that you have shared with us a number of times. And I know we've gotten that number down. I think it was closer to 5.25 or more earlier, but
let me be clearer there, Ms. Melton, that if we do that, and the administration has obviously recommended that each new position that we have on here is critical. The idea, of course, then would have to be, because they're critical, they will come back and be recommended. And once we start going that direction, you're looking at just above 6% at this point for next year. That's what my model is telling me.
Wow.
When we were at 3.3% or whatever it was before, yeah, then we were looking at just slightly over 5. But every time you push something out, we're starting from a lower point the coming year, and that drives the need up higher the following year.
Yep.
I have
questions, Mr.
Point
Fink.
about the if we agreed on no new hires, and we make this exception, and everybody's saying this is critical. Well, critical is kind of subjective. So if we allow this, and then there's an argument to be made for the English language, there's an argument to be made for this, and an argument to be made for that, aren't we just opening ourselves up for that kind of arbitration, if you will?
Yes, I think.
But there are some positions we have to have for compliancy. We are required by law to evaluate students. that, you know, within a certain time period. And if we don't have the staff to do this, then we have to contract it out. And that's what we're trying to figure out. It's not like a larger class size or kids just won't take that special as often. It's that by law we're required to. And so
yeah, I understand that, but by contracting it out, it seemed to be considerably cheaper than hiring a staff member.
It's really not, though,
potentially, but
because
then
like
it could
Mr.
also, we're behind this year, you know, so will possibly go up. We'll need more. It sounds like we anticipate more need for assessments, evaluations, and so that's what we're looking at.
Maggie, would you expect that to go up because of all the virtual learning that some students are struggling with and may need some additional support or counseling or
Well, that would be a better question probably to ask, you know, one of the administrative team here that as far as that, and maybe clarify a little bit about what the role of a school psychologist does. So I don't know if Dr. Gooden can speak to that, what the school psychologists do, their role, and whether we are potentially see an increase in that going forward, or maybe Mr. Rizzo, I'm not sure.
well, that's why I was kind of throwing that out there, since we're going back and forth on the need for another full-time paid psychologist, is maybe looking or talking to people that have a lot more experience, the teachers, the administration. Do you foresee more of a need given the circumstances? And if not, then we drop it. I tend to think, from what I'm reading and hearing, that there's going to be more of a need for some support.
And I think that there's an article to refute anything like that that's out there, because people are bonding with their families and there's more togetherness. So you can go back and forth with all of that. I do have a direct question though for Mr. Fink. The last time we spoke about the unemployment, you were going to get us a percentage, an update to that unemployment percentage for the end of April. Did that come in yet?
I haven't seen the numbers for April yet, Colleen.
So the last number you saw for
Sorry.
March before the devastating month of April was 12%.
The last numbers we saw from, no, the last unemployment rate that we saw come out was 14.7%. It was actually a little bit less than I predicted in my other analysis, which came from Reuters, which was a prediction of 16%. So it actually wasn't as, at least.
Even though 14.7 is significant for unemployment. Anytime
sure.
you're in the teens, like double digits like that.
You're never going to find an argument against that. That's correct.
No, absolutely not.
I still would like to hear what Dr. Gooden had to say is describing the role of the school psychologist.
Well, remember, we have a fairly large special ed population, and that population, when you get students leaving each year as seniors or they're aging out, you've got, it's not like we lose numbers, because you've got an equal amount of numbers approximately coming in. And so those students have to be tested with initial evals. They have to have re-evals done on a regular basis. And that's what constitutes a majority of those caseloads. I'm not sure exactly what the average hours is for testing. Bob, Mr. Rizzo, do you remember that? You were sharing that with me, is about the number of hours that a psychologist spends with an individual case.
An evaluation can take, it depends whether it's just a review of records or whether it's a full-blown initial evaluation, but it can be anywhere between 8 and 24 hours per evaluation. And we're looking at over 200 that were backlogged at this point based on our closure and not being able to meet with students. To give you a ballpark.
So even if we don't add the position, there's a strong likelihood that we will be coming back looking for contracted services to remain in compliance.
Okay, well, this was all under the guise of the Finance Committee meeting. Is there anything further that you want to add or ask about in this segment, Tom?
We still didn't get to what is the board's target. We're still talking about these positions for 2 months. We
2
have
months,
to
it
give
feels like 2 years. I'm
administration-
sorry.
We have to give administration direct, I mean, I need to know where to go. I mean, are we at 2.8? We're leaving the position in. We taking the, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm frustrated, but I don't know where to go.
Don't go
I thought
anywhere
that
without
we
asking.
all agreed on index, and then we started coming back with this other position.
Right. And then somebody, and then we want to know from
Not everybody
administration
agreed.
about, huh?
Not everybody agreed on index. I didn't.
But the majority of the board agreed on index. But now we're above index because we're adding that one position, possibly 2 back in, which I don't know, are we adding them or we're not adding them? If we're adding one position, you're at 2.7. If we add both positions, we're about 2.8.
Yeah, I think it's more helpful to just, if people think the cuts are too deep and too painful, we should be above index then, is what we should be agreeing on, and letting the administration make those decisions about what to do with the money.
What money?
If they're not happy with I don't think we should be making a decision about one psychologist or psychiatrist. I think they should be making those decisions. If people think the cuts are too painful or too harsh, then they should say, I want above index. So I want 2.8 or 3%. So that's just my opinion.
But we have to get somewhere along the line, the board has to agree on something. So if we tell Dr. Gooden that we're okay with anything between this and above index, then I don't see any reason why he wouldn't put all those new hire positions back in, because they were desperately needed by the district. I mean, I don't understand what to say here. I'm sorry. Linda, I understand what you're saying, but I don't know where to go. It's not up to the administration. The board has to set direction.
Right, so everybody, I guess, take a vote again. If we're happy with index or not. If we don't have 5, we have to,
Could we maybe do a, what's your top line? I mean, what's the highest you would be willing to go? I don't know.
Yeah, I would support something in the spirit of trying to move the meeting along, and I'm afraid for Tom's blood pressure at this point,
I don't want to hear his top number.
So I would say I'll jump on the first. How about 2.8 is the highest that I would go, and that's would give leniency for administration to decide which of the batch of new hires would be the most critical to fit underneath that.
Does that include the rebate program?
That would include the, if my memory is correct, I would be in support of that. Yep, because I think that's
So 2.8 with the rebate program.
correct.
Okay.
So if we were in I would line up over there. Would anybody line up behind me? And then we could take a head count, right? To see if anybody's on board with the 2.8 and the rebate program.
I like the idea of looking at the index, but then with that cushion, that kind of covers what you were saying, Dave, and what Christina was saying. There's probably a position or two there that are really in the end going to benefit our district and are necessary, and to allow administration that option to see what that would be. And that kind of agrees with what Linda was saying, which is this is really administration should be dealing with what positions they really need to have. So I support what Dave was saying, 2.8 with the rebate
That's 2.
Come on.
Come on, the water's warm.
I have a question. I'm certainly, I hands down not in support of that at all. But my question is, the direction was already given to cut the new hires. Where is this resurgence of reconsidering?
Well, the direction wasn't given. The recommendation from Finance Committee was to not to move forward with the new hires.
The
board
recommendation
has-
from the, so the board is saying no to the recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Correct. And right now,
Okay.
one person is behind Dave.
Okay, when I say okay, I said,
I
I
thought we
understand
took
that. And I'm not saying I'm supporting of that at all. I'm not.
I think we took a vote just a little while ago to go with index.
It's not a vote.
No, we did not take a vote.
We're just sort of getting consensus here, and just to be clear, the 2.8 is sort of, I'm trying to find middle ground between what the Finance Committee recommended and listening to some other opinions about some critical positions. So that's where the spirit behind the 2.8 is very close to what the Finance Committee was recommending, just taking into account that perhaps the ESL and perhaps the psychologist position is sort of extremely critical. So that's the spirit behind it. And also, we've got to get through this year, and then we got to get through next year together as well. So there you go. So Tom, did you want to go around to see if anybody else is lining up with the 2.8 rebate program? Or you're giving up? You're punting for the night. That's
No, I'm afraid to ask because before I know it, if I ask another question, we're going to be at 3.0. So
it. All right. Well, listen.
who wants to get behind Dave? Linda, where are you at? Are you behind Dave?
Don't blame me for this, by the way. I'm just trying to-
That's fine. I'm behind Dave.
Okay, that's 3. Wendy,
I'm still at index.
Christina, Clinton.
Index.
Okay. All right, so that's the end of my report.
Tom, where are you?
That's the end of my report.
Where are you on this?
I'm in my office in my house.
So you're not going to take a position on this?
I'm not behind Dave.
Okay, where are you?
I don't know. I don't even know anymore.
Colleen, where are you?
I'm definitely not behind Dave. I'm not even near index.
So where are you?
I can't give an exact number. I could have, if there was conversation and there was people that were giving in all different corners and coming out and saying, you know what, we're going to help. We're going to help to save Springford, and we're going to do that. And, if that was happening and I could see cuts here and cuts there and just people giving because they want to preserve the education at Springford, but they also want to preserve the community at Springford, and there was still a slight increase, I could get behind that and be supportive of that, embrace that, and sell that. I can't do that in this. I'm one of 9. I don't have that control, but I cannot be a part of this and be okay with that. You know where I stand. From the beginning, I dug my heels in. My heels are not cemented at 0, but I'm a hell of a lot closer to 0 than I am anywhere near index. I just am, I'm being brutally honest. I think that we have not even seen the true impact of this pandemic and what it's done financially to this community. And when we do, we're going to have a lot of people to answer to. And that, my glasses are off, Clinton, as you say. My rose-colored glasses are definitely off. I worry about the devastation to our community. That's what I'm worried about. And I think that this is just going to be, twisting the knife in people's backs. That's what concerns me about this. I don't want to hurt education. I absolutely don't want to hurt the education. Love the education here. Supported 150 million%. and would do anything to make it work. Maybe sometimes we have to be creative and think outside the box. Maybe it's time to make adjustments to that master plan so that we can still have the great school district and the great services and the great things that we have here, and the teachers and the personnel and the administrators. But if we don't all come together and work together to make that happen, it's not going to happen. That's where I'm at.
Okay, as a member of the Finance Committee, I'm going to rehash for 30 seconds.
Well, wait a minute. Diane hasn't gone yet, Clinton. So can we finish the?
Now let Clinton go first. That's okay.
My concern here, Colleen, is that as a member of the Finance Committee, we presented a percentage to the board. From that point, the direction of the majority of the board was go to zero. The administration gave everybody zero. Nobody moved on it. Remember that? No
That's
one.
not fair, Clinton. It wasn't nobody. It wasn't the general group. It wasn't the whole board. Wasn't the whole board.
I think I was a part of, I wanted to look at what zero would mean, Clinton. I apologize if I wasn't clear back then, but I wanted to see what that would look like, for my 2 cents.
Yes, and I said before we started, if you go to zero, you better bring a strong stomach. That's exactly what I said. And the administration gave this board zero, what it would look like. And the majority did not support that, Colleen.
What we asked for was what it would look like at 0, 1, 2, and so on. And what we got were a list of cuts that could presumably add up to over $10 million. And take your pick from that group. And there are things that I would have picked, but I'm one of 9. And as a whole, the board did not do that. We've looked at that. I've asked for a second pass at that. We've done that. We've done that with the list of teachers. We've done that. It is time to move on. If we don't have the stomach to handle the hard cuts, well, then we better have the stomach and the grit to handle the feedback and the pushback that is coming our way when we raise taxes at this rate during a global pandemic. Be prepared, buckle up.
And you better have the stomach to handle a 6% tax increase next year. Be ready for it,
but that's my
Colleen.
point, Christina. That's exactly my point.
But you're
maybe it's time to take a different look and to model that system, that plan that we have a little bit differently so that it wouldn't be 6% next year either. I don't know. There has to be another answer though. It's not black and white. There has to be another, there's always another way to look at a situation. Are we doing that now?
This is simple mathematics. Right.
Unfortunately,
I'm one person. You only need 5. So,
well,
I'm one.
know that, Colleen. I don't know what else the committee can do. I really don't.
I don't, and Clinton, I agree with you. I mean, I don't know that it's even just the committee. I think, we've all really taken a deep look at the budget. We've all had the opportunity. Every board member has had access to the full budget, the book, each page for each building, and really there's not much there. I mean, once you get past our professional salaries and benefits and, the PSERs and the teacher salaries, there's not a lot of what anybody might call discretionary spending that occurs within our district. There's not much there. So the options that we have are to continue to kick other expenses and other needs down the road. And by doing that, we're putting ourselves at risk with other events. So if we decide that we are not going to fund, for capital projects, well, what happens when we had, I don't even remember, 5 or 8 years, probably 8 years ago or so, when we had the electrical system blowout at the high school or at the 7th grade center or whatever. Well, we were able to adjust and to maneuver and to take care of that situation. What happens if we need a new roof on the fly? What happens if something, we have to be prepared. We have to have, we have to be at the ready. We have a large number of facilities because we cover a large geographical area and we service a large number of students. And in order to be ready to accommodate those students, we can't kick everything down the road. And so to an extent, there's really nothing left to cut. I think to Clinton's point, it's math. I mean, you know, we either cut where the needs are and say, okay, we're cutting programs, we're increasing class sizes, or we don't do that. And we've already talked about cutting any proposed programming so that we don't have any new programming coming in. But there aren't really a lot of places. We all looked at it. There's really nowhere else to cut unless you have ideas of other ways to cut those numbers. Our hands are kind of tied. And I hear what you're saying, and I'm very concerned with the impacts on our community. That's why I brought up the rebate program in the first place. And that's why I've pushed so hard for us to implement a rebate program. I think it's really important that we try to do everything we can for our taxpayers. But you know, at the end of the day, we also have a responsibility to put forth the best educational opportunities for all of our students. And so I'm concerned that we're not going to achieve that goal. And I don't know how we find that right balance. I mean, you obviously, you know, are looking at the today, and I get that. I totally get that. I'm looking a little more, you know, maybe with a little longer lens. But it scares me that we're going to cut off our nose to spite our face. And I just don't know, you know, I don't know that there's a perfect answer. I don't know there's a right answer, but we have to try to work together to come up with the best answer.
Very well said, Christine.
Yeah, Christina, I being new to this, this is a very, very complex issue. I agree with you and I agree with Colleen, and as concerned as I am about helping these kids that may be struggling next year, that need additional help, the evaluations that have to be done. But on the other hand, as I've said before, you know, we can't get blood out of a turnip in the current situation to increase, you know, taxes on people that aren't going to have any money to barely even feed their family, and to increase their taxes on them. It's just so complex. And it's a horrible situation. And we, again, as I said, we have no idea when this is going to end. So I'm kind of fluctuating back and forth because everybody's making really good points. And is there any way, and I know it has to be in the budget ahead of time, but we kind of wait and see. The needs are there, but they're still a little bit cloudy because we don't know what's going to happen in the fall. So, I mean, I'd love to say, okay, I'll go with, you know, 0. I would love to say also that, is there any way that we could have a slight cushion anywhere in case a dire need arises for the students? And I know that's probably, you know, dreaming, but I'm just saying where I'm really torn, and I'm starting to lean back towards more 0, because I don't know, I know of a lot of families that aren't going to be able to pay any more taxes. So that's where I see Colleen's point.
I mean, the tide's rising though, Diane. You know,
I know it.
Tide's rising. So if they can't handle more, I mean, and you know, I mean, we've got to get to something here, folks.
I know.
I got to get up for work tomorrow. So, you know, like the finance committee is bringing, you know, a recommendation. I attempted to try to find some common ground with throwing out an option that I still believe is a good option for this year, for right now. You know, Madam President, you have control of this meeting. I feel it's just, we're on different soapboxes and everybody's.
We are. So with that,
things, and I don't know
Mr.
where.
DeBello started this conversation as part of the Finance Committee. Are you finished with your report that we can move on to Mr. Jackson?
I think he's on mute, Madam President.
No, he's
Yeah,
off.
I had to unmute it. Yeah, so whenever you guys decide what you want to do, let me know.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, property?
I'm afraid to even talk about property, but I will. Property Committee met on May 12th. Some of the items of discussion was the ICS consulting question and answer on the facility report, all 250 pages. There were no questions at that time, but the board does reserve the right to come back at a later date with any questions. There was also a review of the 2021 proposed capital projects. New business under operations. There was discussion regarding, and these 5 items will be presented to the board for approval. The paving of the Arroyo Stores Elementary School, the 9th grade capital paving project, the ICS consultant to provide professional services for design and bid specifications for the HVAC system replacement at the district office. The summer project that requires contract services with administration has deemed essential related to COVID-19 and requests board approval to deem as essential. We also discussed approval of a proposal presented by ICS consulting for a facilities master plan. So those are 5 items that were discussion that will be presented to the board. In addition, ongoing business will be school police and emergency management. School police is patrolling properties, exterior and interior, Monday through Friday, 0900 to 1900 hours, enforcing social gathering and prohibiting property use by the public. All officers have completed their Act 180, Act 120, and Act 67 mandated for the year. All officers are completing their NIMS/ICS 100, 700, and 800, and that stands for the National Incident Management Systems Incident Control System. The police will also be assisting with the virtual graduation, the teacher classroom closeout, and the student property pickup, cap and gowns. Chief Boyer will also be attending the MCIU meetings and training on ERP and the emergency operations coordination. Chief Boyer is also still pursuing grants as he always does. And we were advised that we received a $45,000 grant from the state for communication equipment. And that was the content of the meeting. Any questions?
Mr. Jackson, not a question, just a thanks to Chief Boyer for his continued work around the grant and the acquisition of those funds. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah, he's a grant guy. We really appreciate that. That's all I have, Madam President.
All right, thank you. Mr. Rizzo, Assistant Superintendent report.
Thank you, Mrs. Sowski. Good evening, director, students, staff, and community members. I hope you're well as we embark on week 10 of our closure. I, for one, am missing the in-person interaction, and I'm looking forward to a day where we can all gather together again. I'm certain I'm not alone. While in many ways we have done a great job connecting, it's hard to replace the personal connections made by physically inhabiting the same space. Together we will get through this, and as our signs have said, together or apart, we are still Spring-Ford proud. Just a few brief announcements to share tonight. First of all, on behalf of Dr. Gooden and the Spring-Ford Area Board of School Directors, I want to thank Giant Food Stores and manager Michael Downey for their generous donation of $1,344 to help provide meals to our families. They took note of Spring-Ford's efforts to provide meals during this difficult time and wanted to lend a hand. Again, to Giant and Mr. Michael Downey, thank you for your donation. You are amazing. 10-day challenge. The 10-day film challenge is an intense and invigorating 10 school days in which teams of students make a movie, write, shoot, edit, and score it, during their film classes period only in 10 days. On day one, the challenge is released to the students, the character including his or her backstory, a prop, a line of dialogue, a cinematic technique and genre that must be included in their movie. Then 10 school days later, a 3 to 4 minute movie must be completed. In 2011, the 10-day film challenge began with 3 New Jersey high schools. In 2019, it has grown to 130 high schools and impacting 3,800 student filmmakers from 17 states and 8 countries outside the United States. This year, over 200 movies were submitted from all over the world. Congratulations to McKinley Lynn, Sarah Camilleri, Nick Elsner, Dana Reed, Emma Groh, and Emma Begg. Their movie, Pure Chemistry, was nominated for Best Use of Prop, Best Editing, Best Screenplay, and Best Use of Character. They won Best Use of Prop, Best Screenplay, and they were #1 overall. So yes, our Springford filmmakers can now claim that they are the best in the world this year. Congratulations to all of our student filmmakers, Mr. Andrew Rothermel and Mrs. Cheryl Mergia, for their efforts. Lastly, well, not lastly, I just wanted to take a minute to congratulate and thank the Evans Elementary School staff for coordinating a socially distant friendly drive-by parade. This past Saturday from 10 to 12:30, students were able to drive through the Evans parking lot to see their teachers cheering them on. There was a tremendous amount of energy with smiles as the staff and students reconnected. Even though it was a quick drive-by, the DJ, pom-poms, dancing, and positive energy from the staff and Principal Havrilla really sold the event. Thank you to Jackie Havrilla and the Evans staff for creating a wonderful memory. I have to say I've never seen so many happy faces while sitting in traffic. Social emotional learning update. The cost of doing business the way we are is that we are sacrificing student and staff wellness. We are, of course, doing what we can to ensure students feel connected while at home. However, our efforts simply cannot replace the value in in-person exchanges. Social emotional learning for the past several years has been a focus of Springford. In the past 2 years, we began looking at our SEL efforts in a more holistic way. This year, we established a district-wide SEL team divided into 2 key groups. The core team, which is responsible for developing and driving our vision, and the coaching team, which is responsible for piloting and sharing strategies in our buildings. This upcoming year will likely result in a slight shift in our focus. Regardless of whether we are in person or virtual, our district-wide SEL team will focus on mitigating the setbacks brought on by our mandated school closure. And with that, that is the end of my report. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Rizzo? All right, thank you, Mr. Rizzo. Solicitors report?
Yes, good evening. Good evening. Just an update. We had been discussing, you had been discussing earlier with regard to finance, the issues involving special ed and students when they return to school in whatever form it may look like in the 2020-2021 school year. My office has been in constant contact with the supervisors of special education, essentially strategizing various scenarios to play out as students transition from a possible virtual world now and maybe some sort of either regular school or hybrid schooling or whatever it may look like in the fall. And certainly with special education related issues that comes procedural issues and IEP development and the like. So those issues we've been working on pretty constantly over the last couple of weeks. The other issue, and this is actually COVID-19 related, but a fairly significant issue for schools nonetheless. You may have read about significant changes to Title IX regulations involving school entities and colleges. But significantly are the expectations and changes for K through 12 schools with regard to investigations, who oversees investigations, and responsibilities both to the accused and the accuser as relates to due process. The regulations are a short 2,300 pages long, so there's a lot to digest. I think the good thing for Springford is the fact that over the last couple of years, you've had some significant changes to your Title IX processes and reporting. So I think you will be in a better shape to embrace some of these changes, whereas I know a lot of districts that don't really invest time into this will view this as a big shock in terms of what their expectations are going to be. And that is my report.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Fitzgerald. Moving on to other, some more items here. We have the minutes, A and B. Are there any questions or comments? Okay. Personnel. We have personnel A through E. Any questions or comments there? Just want to clarify with E that I had asked that if for some reason that doesn't take place, the ESY, that language is there and it would cover us, that we wouldn't have to make those payments, correct? Is that right, Mr. Rizzo or Mr. Fitzgerald?
That is correct, yes.
That is correct. Okay, just wanted to clarify that, okay? Finance, A through H.
I have a
Questions or comments?
I have a question on F. I just wanted clarification on what that increase is. It's worded a little wonky, so I wasn't sure if the increase was 1 million to 1.3 or if it was 300,000 to 1.3. Thank you.
The increase is 300,000.
I figured that. I was hoping that that was the case, but I
Sorry,
wanted
I'm
to
sorry that wasn't clear.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
I had a couple of questions also. D3, only if those field trips would actually take place, would that money be paid, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then H, those are the updated numbers from Western, correct, Mr. Fink?
Where's my mute button? Yes, that's correct.
Okay, good. Okay, just want to make sure. All right, property A through E.
I had a question. Just
Questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead, Christina.
Some clarification on the word essential. I know some of the projects that we have listed here are with repaving and so forth. And so wondering if Mr. Hunter could just, for the public, kind of give a little background on what essential is and what you're looking for in this case.
Yes, I can. The projects that we have listed as essential, and part of this is been deemed due to the COVID-19 to make sure that all projects that are moving forward with contractors related to schools are fully transparent. So this was the particular project specific to paving. We're on the original planned budget for fiscal year 19-20. And once we came to terms with what our budget was going to be, we included them in. That's why they are on for board approval for these projects.
Thank you.
That help, Christina?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure it was clarified for the public so that they had a better understanding of the designation of essential.
Okay. And then programming and curriculum, A through G. Any questions or comments there? I had a question about F, the teacher laptops and the docking stations. And I received clarification from Mr. Catalano that the teacher and staff laptops have not been purchased yet. There are some quotes in hand for them. They're planning on showing the teachers and staff these items on May 28th at a department chair meeting to get input and feedback from the teachers to make sure they have the best device for them moving forward. And then they hope to submit right after this meeting so that they can get them in, configure them, and deploy them for the next school year. So is that the direction that the board wants to continue to go in with that?
That's really essential, especially with the need for online learning that's going on now and potentially will be going on next year. It's there's a cycling through of replacing outdated equipment, so it's incredibly important.
Everybody's on that same page?
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, and then G, it was about the smart panels, and that was also brought up in curriculum and technology. I didn't get the impression from that meeting that that was completely decided that we were moving forward with that purchase, or are we?
Yeah, again, I thought that that was, ongoing technology that we need to maintain, that at the very base minimum, what's going on. Like, it's not anything extra or added. These were things that are all part of the.
Except that when Mr. Catalano was asked during that meeting, he said some of them weren't broken or damaged right now, but didn't have a count at that time. Is that right? Do I recall that from that meeting? Is Mr. Catalano on the line? Is he on the
Sorry,
Zoom?
yes, I'm here. It's
Oh, there you are.
It's phase 4 of 5.
Mhm.
We've been doing approximately 120 per year. When this was started 4 years ago, the plan was estimated about 600 needed to be replaced over the 5-year span. Again, this is phase 4 of 5, so there's about 114 we have on the list for this year to fit into that amounted budget piece. Some are replacements. Some are to put into classrooms without anything. Some are to replace 8 to 10-year-old smart boards. Some are to replace malfunctioning projectors, etc. There's many different reasons that these are being on the list this year.
Okay, so everybody wants to go forward with that piece right now too? Is that right?
Yes.
We're not voting right now.
No. Are there any other questions or comments on that? Okay. Conferences and workshops, A through C. Any questions or comments? Other business, A through H. Any questions or comments?
On A, I just had a question. Is this something that will we have to re-vote on this? Is it maybe too soon for us to be putting this on the agenda? Is it something maybe we could revisit in June, in the June meeting? Or I'm just wondering because it's a trip in August and it just seems.
Right, it's probably
there's so
not
much
even gonna happen.
uncertainty that I don't know.
Yeah,
It doesn't, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter that we voted on it.
Correct.
There's no
And-
impact to the district, and yeah, I think that would be, is there language? I don't recall if there was language in there saying regarding
is.
the governor's closure.
There is. Yes, there's language.
And also remember that group would want to start fundraising. And that's why it would be important for this to go through.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see the language in there.
It says contingent upon the reopening of the schools and a discontinuation of any school closure.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Sorry, I missed that. Okay. All right, board comment. I just want to add that there was an executive session at 6:30 prior to the start of this meeting tonight to discuss personnel issues. Are there any other board comments?
Yeah, I got a couple comments. I wanted to read this out to the board that I got from a parent. I don't want to say who it was from, but I thought this was a good message to read out. Let me just see. My daughter is in 2nd grade at Evans. Her teacher is Miss Harris, who will be retiring this year. My daughter struggles in school. We noticed in the last year, Evans was quick to put in an IST together for her with the help of her 1st grade teacher, Miss Weber, from the support program team. As we began the 2nd grade, my daughter was below grade level and lacked the confidence in herself. Miss Harris was so patient with her. She believed in her when my daughter didn't believe in herself. She worked with her all school year to help build her confidence and comfort with reading. We have worked out our IST plan, and my daughter is now reading where she should be and is ready for the next school year. I truly believe this couldn't have happened without Miss Harris and Miss Weber. Then she said, is there anything I could do to help recognize them? And I told her to reach out to the building administrator, but I said I would also, if she was okay with it, I would read this during the board meeting as well. And she said that would be great. But I did tell her I wasn't going to mention any of her name or her daughter's name as well. But I just wanted to read that out for the board. I thought it was something that we should recognize. So a big thank you to Ms. Harris and Mrs. Weber for really making a difference in this little girl's life. So thank you very much. With that, we have to have an approved budget. That timeline is coming. Nothing has happened in Harrisburg. No dates have changed. So we're going to have to get to a conclusion at some point in the near future. You know, we all have expectations of where we need to be, but, you know, from my perspective, we need to be able to give direction to the board. We did talk about, you know, the reduction of staff, and that's a conversation that has to occur as well. And I hate to say, but we need to have a quick 10-minute exec session after this meeting to discuss the one item also related to a contract.
Sure, why not?
Well, it's early, so I thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah.
I have an issue with these team meetings because I can't be heard on them.
Well, I think as a board, it's time for us to start meeting. I know that I brought this up. I know Clinton has brought it up, but I think that we all have been everywhere in our personal lives every day. And I don't see there's no reason why as a board, we can't actually start meeting with social distancing and wearing masks or whatever people feel they need to wear. But I think the time has come that we got to stop with the Zoom meetings and all this other stuff. Because I've said this months ago, we have a lot to do as a board, and this is becoming very, very difficult, where the district is going to start being hindered by what we're doing. That's just my feeling, but I think it's time for us to start meeting.
I support that, Mr. DeBello, regarding meetings. You know, this is practical to a point, but it's also counterproductive overall. So I would really like the board to look at also meeting in person with all the, you know, necessary protocols put in place. So when he can hear, that's the main reason for it.
I want to go back to what Mr. DeBello said a minute ago too, about giving direction to the board regarding the reduction of staff. Where are we on that?
What's
Yeah. What?
what's the question, Colleen? I'm not.
The question is, where are we on that, on the reduction of staff? Are we giving that direction to the board or to the administration, or where are we on that?
Yes, we're giving it. Yes. That's everything's on the table.
Is it administration feel as though they had that directive? Dr. Gooden, can you confirm that you have that directive to look at reduction in staff at this point?
I would say it'd be a lot easier if I knew what target I was looking for, but you know, I can give you a reduction, you know, look at the TPEs or whatever, but I really do need to know what the target is, what we're looking for, because to not know what that target is, we're kind of spinning our wheels. And I would say that, and as you folks know, you know, we just need some direction on what the target is, because we do, my administrative team does have a tremendous amount on their plates right now, certainly in the planning for next year and trying to facilitate everything else going on. But so it would certainly, I believe, would help us just to know what the target is, what the board wants to get to, and if the reduction in staff is part of that plan, then we can move in that direction. But if the board is happy with index, where we're at is exactly where we're at right now. So I you know, going back to the whole target, we would like to have that, but I am hearing that the board wants to prepare for a reduction.
Well, I don't understand what we're doing, because if we're 40 minutes ago or somewhere in there, the board was at 2.5, then 2.6, then 2.7, then 2.8, and then add some more positions if you need them. And now we're saying reduce them. So I'm like, I'm sorry, but this, when you're sitting here listening to these conversations, I mean, this is literally what we're saying. So
We have 9 different positions going here.
I know that, and so
Can I ask a
Is it
question,
not
Ms.
relevant to have a vote or something, or somebody make a motion to like this?
We can't, we can't have a vote, right, Mark?
yes, you can. We could have a motion to give directive to the board, the administration, to come back with staff reduction recommendations. But
First,
I don't see that. I'm not hearing that from the board.
could I first, maybe let's take one piece off of it. Could I make a motion that that administration move forward with the rebate program so that we can get that approved and get that up and running?
No,
No. That, Christina, not that it can't be done. It needs to be done through a formalized resolution. So I would suggest we not piecemeal that together. That would have to come forward separately.
So
But
can
it
that
sounds
be-
to me like there's support for that, so we will prepare accordingly.
Can that be added for next week's voting meeting, please?
We can prepare a resolution for next week. Yep.
Perfect. That way we can be ready to go for the new tax year when we do.
And then, so how is their resolution? Is it like for 0, index, 2.8?
No, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about.
I know what he's talking about. That's separate. But I'm talking about if we're trying to give the administration directive, is it 3 motions? Is it?
No, it's going to be one motion. Unfortunately, it's not going to have the number in there that Dr. Gooden necessarily wants, but I'll make the motion right now. I make a motion for the board to give administration direction to look at the possible and prepare something for us that would show us what a reduction in the TPEs would potentially look like and the impact of that on the budget. Or is that's too wordy, Mark, isn't it?
Well, it doesn't have to be a motion. I mean, if the board is authorizing the administration to go back and look at staff cuts, and there's no objection by a majority of the board to that, then we're fine. That doesn't have to be through a formal motion.
Okay.
What's TPE?
Those are your temporary professional employees. Those are your non-tenured teachers that are generally in their first 3 years of employment within the district.
I don't know the acronym.
so what are we doing?
I don't know.
We're sitting here.
Can we
everybody's
have the
silent.
support to give the direction to administration to look at that?
Dr. Gooden has said he needs some target to work with, Madam President.
We can't give them a target. We don't have a target.
Right. We have to have a target. Otherwise, we're just going to go around on the hamster wheel. We got to have a target. We have to. We have to have a target, guys. Mr. DeBella, you were speaking on board comment. Anything else?
No, I made my comment.
So there's no direction to give the administration to look at the reduction in staff.
So
Yes or no, guys?
In the spirit, like we've continued to explore all options, I see no reason why exploring that and giving clear direction for them to do that. I have no objection to that personally for my consensus.
Tom?
No,
No.
no. Because I'm not going to have them go spinning their wheels to come back, and then we're going to be doing this again in a week or whatever. I'm not doing this again. we've gone down this road multiple times and we just keep circling. I'm not playing this game anymore. I'm sorry.
Wendy?
So we're already at index, right?
No, we're at 2.8 plus the rebate.
No.
No, the
We're at
rebate's in there.
2.6, and then it was adding those two additional positions, put it as 2.8. I thought we were at 2.6.
We're at
Yeah.
we're at 2.5. Then we added the rebate was 2.6. Then we added the two positions would be 2.8.
I'm good with the 2.5.
But we're not talking about that right now.
Well, what are we talking about?
Colleen's trying to find
I'm
out. if
just
the
trying to
majority of
get
the
some
board
support
wants
to have administration look at potentially reducing staff. I don't want to, but if we're still up at this number, then I think to bring it down, we have to do that. We have to at least look at that. In the spirit of gaining information, we have to look at it.
So we're pretty much at index with no new hires, right?
Yes,
Okay, so are we trying to get below that?
I certainly am.
But where do you want to go, Colleen? What's your target number?
Get me in and around or under 1. I mean, this is just too much.
You just had a number there. You just gave
That's not, I'm not fixated at that. In, around, below, slightly above, that's my number.
So then our direction to the administration is to get us way below index and aiming.
No, administration is saying, Dr. Gooden, and Dr. Gooden is saying he wants a number. We are not all on the same page. My 1 is nowhere, or below 1 is nowhere near your index, right? So we can't give him a number. When I asked when we were going to look at what does 0 look like, what does 1 look like, what does 2 look like, we didn't get back exactly what we asked for. We got back a list of cuts totaling $10 million. We didn't get what 0, what 1, what 2.
Right.
We had to pull that together. So what I'm saying now is that as much as we'd like to give him a number that we all agree to where we'd like to be at, we can't because we're not there. So show me what a small selection of cuts would look like. Not because I want to hurt us, because I don't, but because I'm also trying to find that balance.
So
That's what I'm saying.
They've already come to us with index. So what we're asking them to do is see how far below index can you get? Is that what we're asking?
Who came to us with index?
The board. I mean, the administration, Dr. Gooden. I mean,
No.
If you recall, back when we had a finance committee meeting, I think it was 2 back, we did have an opportunity to take a look at what cutting your numbers, cutting your teachers would be, or your staff, and we looked at the increasing of class sizes at the elementary level. That was on the table. And if I remember correctly, it didn't seem like there was an appetite for that. But certainly that was part of that list to increase class sizes. But I would, I would caution the board on that, because I've been in this district for 9 years, and the community is going to not be happy with that at all.
as I recall, that what you came to us with was like almost, this is what it's going to cost because of the increase in salaries and benefits and all of the things that just naturally occur or contractually occur, was going to take us to pretty much around index without cutting anything. Correct? So what we're talking about now is going back and taking things away if we want to get below index. And if nobody likes that, well, then things have to give somewhere, right?
Well, I think this was brought up by Mr. DeBello, and I'm thankful that he brought it up. He said he wasn't in favor of giving administration the direction to look at cutting because it doesn't feel that it eventually will be something, I'm speculating, Mr. DeBello, but that the board is going to support in any event. And so does anybody else support Mr. DeBello's position of not giving them direction to look at what cutting staff would be from a dollars and cents standpoint.
The reason I brought it up was because this was an item that was hanging out there, and I wanted to get, I wanted to get conclusion. The reason I'm not for this is because I don't feel that we're sending, once again, we're sending administration off into the abyss with no direction, and we're going to expect them to come back with something, and then we're going to talk about it. And not that I agree with Colleen, not that I'm supporting reduction of staff. All I'm trying to do is, from a finance committee standpoint, these are the things that I'm trying to get closure on. So, and Wendy is right, if we're at 2.6 or more to add those 2 positions in that, then what are we doing? Why are we going to send administration off to build off of this?
Okay.
That's all. I'm not bringing this up because I'm recommending that we cut staff. I'm not saying that. I don't want to give that impression. I'm just saying that I don't want to send off administration to do another task if the board is not in the position. And we already know that because majority of the board is at least index. That's where the majority of the board is at.
Right. Okay.
So what are we doing? So
Okay, I think we're going to move on. I think we're just
Correct.
going to move on from here. Is there any other
Yep.
board comment? All
Well,
right,
I
public to
didn't
be-
I threw out, I did put out there a small conversation. I did talk about it's time for us to start coming together as a board, and I heard Clinton agree, but I don't know where we're at with that. We can't even make that decision.
Okay. So do you mean would board members be willing to meet in person? And yeah, I think that that's something that we have to respect, that if there are members of the board that, that's a very personal and sort of medical / emotional decision at this point. I would be willing to. I'm just saying that we just have to be respectful that, right now, I'm not sure that meeting virtually is necessarily the issue behind not, gaining enough traction, Tom. Getting together in a room, I miss it terribly. I'd be willing to meet, but we certainly need to be respectful that not everyone would share that, because it's not just about logistics. There's health issues impacting there.
I'd be willing to meet too, and there's no reason that we can't find a venue that allows us social distancing and also allows us to have AV support, so anybody that is not comfortable with that can be included virtually.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree that I think we're all in agreement with that. We definitely need to meet and really dig down a little deeper into this, but I think the actual decision as to whether individually we want to be there or not is something that is very personal. And
people do not have to attend if they do not want to. I'll say this.
Exactly.
No one,
Exactly.
no one putting pressure on
Why are we
anybody.
saying it again?
Just looking at a different option of meeting and trying to govern as a board. That's all. So if we have 5 people, those 5 people can meet. We can, some kind of way with technology, which can't be that complicated, bring those other people in.
Right. But does that portion of it need to be decided right here or there? Is that allowed to be shared between emails as we try and set up the meeting, or is that something that needs to be here? Because there may be some people who are not really comfortable objecting to meeting in person at this time.
It doesn't matter if they object. The question is are there 5 people that agree about meeting? I mean, I'm sorry, but people are texting me that are on this call, and they're saying, you have no idea the comments I'm getting from people. We can't even make a decision on this.
Well, the decision is that we are going to meet. And we're
Okay.
going to try and meet face-to-face using social distancing. And Tom, I can't wait to see what mask you wear, and I'll have gloves for you too.
Yeah, I wear an N95 mask like everyone else.
Okay, can we go on
I'm done
So-
here. Are we finished here? Oh my God.
Do we have I support meeting in person.
I do too.
Okay, that's
So-
two. Tom,
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right, that's a majority.
So
Okay.
do we have enough time to schedule a meeting for Thursday evening? It doesn't look like we have any board meetings, like any committees or anything on Thursday. Would we be able to, do we have enough time to schedule a finance committee meeting and add like a, you know,
I can't do Thursday.
I'm not having another finance committee meeting because I have no idea what we would be meeting about. I'm sorry, I don't.
well, if we're, Tom, if we're gonna have an in-person meeting to go through all of these questions from a financial perspective and budget directive, then let's put one on the table. Let's say that we're open
Why
to-
would we redo all of this? Why would we rehash and go round and round again with all of this lack of decision-making that we have demonstrated fully during this process? I don't think that is the purpose of meeting in person. I think going forward to meet in person is to get us back on track and everything. I'm not willing to meet in person to rehash any of this. Frankly, I'm not.
No, it is for a board meeting, Colleen, not a committee meeting. I'm not meeting anymore regarding finance. All right, Mr. DeBello, we're still at board comment.
I'm done.
The board comment and the bottom line is that we're not giving administration any kind of direction to look at staff reduction. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, public to be heard.
Derek Gilbert, your microphone is now open. Derek, your microphone is open. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, sir. I'm not sure the protocol is the first time I was here, but I did want to have some clarification of the conversation about the index. If the index is...
I'm sorry, Mr. Gilbert, could you please state your full name, your address, and spell your last name, please?
Sure. Derek G. Gilbert, 340 Goldman Drive, Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. My last name, Gilbert is my last name.
Thank you.
Yes, I was first time here, so I'm not sure about the protocol in which non-board members are able to participate, but I did want to have clarification about when you had the conversation most of the night since I've been on about the index. And I understand from the previous, early last year, we talked about that taxes hadn't been going up. We kind of have been a low version. Is the index is a proposed tax increase? Is that what that index conversation was about?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and so I've been here for the full length. A little disappointed that, you know, I understand the comments about being on a hamster wheel, but my son actually, Dimitri, is in Oaks, and he recently had a special needs classification education that he needs. So I understand that we don't want to raise taxes. I'm assuming, since I didn't hear the previous conversation, that because of what the country is going through and the district is going through from a financial standpoint, from people out of work and those kind of things, that we don't think that's the proper message to send to try to increase taxes at the time. But I wasn't sure if there was a strategic issues of why we have to cut versus at the end of the day, the kids need to have the resources that they need. And so I am a proponent of you may have to make some tough decision now, thinking that on the long run, it's still, you need to have a resource in the district, you need to have it. But was there a information that tells us where the costs that we may be increasing, but also since we've been out of school and the kids have been home, there has to be some savings somewhere in there. So I don't know what the balance of it that we then want to say that we have to cut, or versus raising taxes because the kids need something. So just real quick, I'm not sure, it's the first time, so I apologize if I'm asking inappropriate questions.
So the answer to your question, I gave that update earlier in the meeting. It might, just as a recap, we went through all the expense savings and all the revenue losses and all that, and the district is going to be, most likely, it's looking like about a $600,000 deficit when we come out of this year.
Okay, and so the index you're looking for, you do that index, and that was a break even for, so we raised taxes by 2-something%. Then that means that we can absorb that $600,000 deficit.
No, that's a whole other problem that we'll have to deal with.
And Ms. Zazowski, we are at 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gilbert.
All right, thank you, guys.
Mr. Gilbert, we are planning also on having a town hall meeting in the near future, and some of these questions will likely be answered and addressed at that time.
Is there somebody else there? Rich, I think a Julie I see in attendees that has a hand raised.
Yes, Julie, your microphone is now open.
Hi, Julie Mullen, MULLIN, 117 Meadowland Drive, Collegeville, PA. I'm just hoping that when you guys meet, either town meeting, future finance meetings, or whenever you meet, that you'll make a decision on the installment, having an additional installment. You do not have to extend the face period to do that. PV already does their last installment as December 31st, even though their face period ends October 31st, just like ours. It is quite a project to turn these bills around under normal circumstances. But if we're going to add a fourth installment, there is additional forms that need to be ordered, there's software changes that need to be made, and we're going to be cutting it close.
So just for the record, Julie Mullen is the tax collector for Upper Providence.
Thanks, Julie. I know it's definitely something that we have in the back of our minds, we're aware of, and definitely making sure you and your peers are kept informed. We're hoping to make decisions fairly quickly on all of this.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Any other comments or questions or public comments?
At this time, there were no other hands raised.
Okay, that being said, I
I
see that one just went up.
Kim Shemp, your microphone is now open.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kim Shemp, SCHEMPP, 306 Township Line Road, Schwenksville. Okay. Oh. Hi. Hopefully I won't have as big of a problem as you do with the budget tonight. I just wanted to comment that I have 3 children in the Spring-Ford School District, and in the last several weeks, all 3 of them have been receiving emails from their teacher telling them how much they miss seeing them and having them in class and everything. And surprisingly, all 3 of my children feel the exact same way. They are missing their teachers, missing seeing them, and missing saying goodbye to them this year. Hopefully, I hate to ask you to do one more thing for the seniors, but I'm going to. I'm proposing or hoping we can brainstorm to come up with some kind of plan, just like what Evans did this past weekend, whereas our seniors can see their teachers, counselors, secretaries, administration, everybody that they've seen for the last 4 years in one place and get to say goodbye to them. Just like Evans did, I was wondering if we could social distance everybody and possibly have the kids drive their cars around to just say goodbye and well wishes for everybody and to thank their teachers over the past 4 years. I was hoping we could do something like that for our seniors, and I promise I won't ask you any more for the seniors. And I appreciate all the hard work you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Colleen, we have to have a quick exec session, please.
We have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, meeting adjourned